Hello everyone, I hope you hear me well. Good, so it's nice to see you today. I'm here to introduce myself briefly first and then for 40 more minutes, so you'll hear a lot about me. And I'm here to talk about what I've been doing since the MSc in AI, but also a bit before. I'll start with a quick word about my background. I grew up in France, in Paris, got my baccalaureate, then went to the University of Warwick in England to study mathematics. And then I got more and more acquainted with AI, wanted to pursue deeper formation in this field, but having a broad knowledge of all the topics it offers. And that's why I joined the MSc in AI. It was great, I had a wonderful year. And at the end, I faced the choice between becoming a data scientist and using my AI knowledge to tackle real world problems. But what I wanted to do a bit deeper inside is to innovate, to try to use some existing technologies or develop some technologies to really contribute to new problems. And it required this part of research that led me to first start with an internship at Centrale Supélec with Franciscos Malheiros, that you may know, professor at Centrale, about graph machine learning. That's a word of advice for all the new students, but I don't see many here, is if you pick a direction like this, like an internship, I think it very easily leads you towards like a career path, and it's kind of very difficult to get out of it. You can, of course, but if you become good at something, for instance, research, you're going to get opportunities related to it, and therefore you get a bit aspired in this career path. I really loved it, so I'm very happy I did this. I got a PhD then at Centrale Paris in INRIA, a PhD in machine learning, which I defended a few months ago. And it was great. I spent a year talking about graph. So if you haven't taken this course at Centrale, it's a modality of data which is a bit specific, defined as non-Euclidean, meaning you have nodes that represent people or can represent anything, and they're connected together. So it's a very funny structure that is used now for recommendation systems, traffic predictions, weather predictions, discovery of new molecules, and many other things. So it's a very cool topic that kind of grew with me during my PhD. The image is not working because it's a PDF, sorry. And I wanted to have a global comprehension of the field. So I started to work on the explainability of these algorithms for ethical questions, fairness, try to understand why they take some decisions. Then move to some like more theoretical algorithms to propose to detect a cancer on 2D molecules. And this concludes the first year of my PhD. And then I made a move. I managed to join Mila, which is a huge scientific institute in Montreal, created by Yosu Bjo, an AI research institute, to work for climate change. Because I wanted my work to have some impact and some finality, and I was very much attracted by this topic. A word of advice here is Yosu Bjo, for those who don't know him, is a Turing Prize 2018. He supervised Yann Lequin, which you may know as well, and therefore he's a kind of a big figure in AI. And I just shot him an email one day, and I was not really expecting an answer, but got one. And got the opportunity to collaborate with him for 2 years in his lab, and it kind of changed my PhD. So don't be afraid to shoot emails like this. You don't risk anything, and you may earn a lot from there. But enough of introduction. Let me talk about the project that I'm working on, that I worked on, and I'm still working on, and which is, I think, very cool. The aim that we have is to reduce the global carbon emissions, and we want to do it by tackling industrial processes. There's many processes involving cement production, fertilizer production, hydrogen synthesis. All this, it accounts for a huge part of global emissions. Cement is like 7%, fertilizer 3% of the worldwide global emissions. And a way that we can improve the efficiency of these processes, emit less CO2, is to find better electrocatalysts for the chemical reactions that happen within these processes. If you produce hydrogen, you use electricity to break the water molecule H2O into hydrogen and oxygen. And therefore, this process, it takes a lot of energy, and finding better catalysts helps do it, but with less energy as input. There's also many alternative applications. You can find new materials with certain properties. It can be lighter, but very robust steel for cars or for planes or whatever, making them lighter, and there's lots of advantages. Anyway, and why do we apply AI to it? Because it's a very difficult problem. Currently, the chemists, they're in the labs, they have some intuitions about what materials to try. They try one, it takes a lot of time because they make all the experiments associated with it. So the discovery of novel materials is very slow, and the need for new materials is very urgent. So we propose to tackle this problem in two ways. One will help search the space of potential candidates with generative AI. So there's roughly 10 to the power 100 materials that could exist. So it's a very large space, and using AI to screen potential candidates and explore that space is a very promising application. And the second is, once you've picked a material, you have to compute its properties, its energy, its solubility, its forces. And all this is computationally expensive, as using machine learning models to predict these properties is also very useful. So we're kind of combining both in this very simplified pipeline. We have open source data, but can be also data contained by companies of materials or catalytic reactions with the properties of interest that has been measured either in labs or with computational methods coming from the physics. And you train predictive models on them. So it receives, a 3D atomic system. So really the type of elements like hydrogen, carbon, and where it's placed in space in 3D coordinates. And you predict quantities, can be forces on each atom, it can be the energy of the system. And it's a very cool line of models because there's many physical requirements you have to comply with. It has to be invariant to the rotations of the molecule. It has to conserve energy. Pass you the details, but it's kind of interesting. And then there's the second line of model, which is generative models that is going to explore the space of potential candidates. So here we use a kind of a reinforcement learning algorithm that constructs material from first crystallography principle and assesses its properties using the predictive model. That's why you can search like an infinite space efficiently and see which are the promising candidates. And these promising candidates, you can use them for discoveries, pass them to the labs so that the chemists can look them into more depth. So that's the end of my PhD work. I had a short Amazon break to work on LLMs and do like everyone else, I guess, for a while. But I quickly stopped to create my own startup. Actually, I co-founded it with two other people. And it's a startup called Alpic that aims to follow what I did during my PhD, meaning try to optimize carbon-intensive industries by doing AI-driven chemistry. I've got two co-founders, Mathieu Galtier, who worked at Hawking for like 10 years and had a PhD from Oxford before, Victor Schmidt, Polytechnique, then I met him at Mila, and we raised recently 8 million to start this initiative, which enabled us to create a big team of 10 to 15 people, a bit more maybe with PhDs and interns, to tackle these ambitious projects. And a little word about the mission. The aim is to build this AI pipeline that I described, to find better catalysts for some chemical reactions and bridge the gap between the academia and the industry to have an impact. For now, the academia is in his way, the industry does his way, but there's no real connection between the two, and it's super important that we accelerate this period. So I'm going to skip this slide and maybe go back just to the platform to see that it's exactly what we've done before at Mila. We just have to make it a bit better and to integrate two things. First is the labs in the loop. So meaning we have connections with the industries, with the academical experimental labs to co-develop together some new materials that we find interesting for their use cases or for use cases we design. And we need to incorporate the manufacturing constraints, the synthesis constraints, which is a very tough problem because if you find a new material, you still have to produce it, to scale it, and for it to be interesting financially for the company. So it's a very big area of research, actually. There's many startups being created right now, or initiatives at Meta or DeepMind about the topic. And I think that's it for my experience. Thank you for listening.